World title in everyone's imagination. That's the heavyweight champ. You were here. Everyone else was here. But since then, the feeling has been Joshua makes all this money fighting anyway, 30 million pounds, whatever it is. Why should he take 40 or 50 to fight Wilder when he's making against anybody? He can make 30, 40 million pounds, whatever it is.
No fantasy contracts, just reality. You know, bringing our worth to the table and bargaining and negotiating what we're worth and making this fight happen.
Which mentality do you come in with? I ask because when you were slick, to me that looked like a better fighter. But maybe this is the kind of fight where you just need to impose your strength.
Anthony Joshua's quiet certainty rose to the forefront as he settled in beside Max Kellerman before the long-awaited Jake Paul showdown, a moment that has stirred both boxing loyalists and crossover fight followers. During their conversation, Joshua didn't merely discuss tactics. He opened up about the weight of expectation, legacy, and spectacle wrapped around this battle. With Kellerman searching for deeper meaning, Joshua confronted the doubters, the pressure, and the surprising reasons driving him into the ring against one of the sport's most divisive personalities.
The world, or a heavyweight champion of the world, you're an undefeated Olympic super heavyweight gold medalist, you're entering your physical prime, and you put 100,000 people in Wembley. So I get your argument. I have the economic clout. He's not coming in as partners. I should get a bigger slice of the pie. Let's have a realistic negotiation.
Kellerman, known for weaving sharp technical instinct with a hint of theatrical doubt, instantly focused on the wider storyline wrapped around the moment. He insisted there's simply no avoiding it. This becomes one of the most unusual showdowns ever witnessed in heavyweight boxing. Joshua stands a proud former world champion. Jake Paul remains merely an online entertainer. So, what draws this fight forward? It turned into something millions of fans kept wondering since the announcement. Joshua's answer then shaped the mood for the entire conversation.
Outbox him. If you're waiting on him and he's initiating and he's feinting you into counters and then he's countering the counter.
When asked what he admires most about Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua replied softly yet firmly, he's bringing new eyes to boxing. He noted that Paul, despite his unusual beginning and zero amateur experience, has jumped into the deep end. He keeps placing himself in the deep end, pushing himself under pressure. Joshua said for him, the greatest thing about Paul is the passion and the drive to challenge himself at a high level. Something that, in Joshua's view, helps cast a spotlight on the sport and pull boxing toward new audiences.
Jake Paul, does he remind you of any guy that you fought before? Or is this a unique situation that you've never come across?
Very unique situation I've never come across, but treating with the same respect that I give all my competition.
So you got the mental fortitude, he's got the mental fortitude. But what's the one best thing that you pride Jake Paul of having that maybe you haven't seen in other competition you faced so far?
From a physical aspect, I couldn't even mention it at the minute. But from a mental aspect, he offered me to fight. Normally, I'm offering people fights. He's told me, come and fight. So he believes in himself.
What does the word legacy mean to you, AJ?
Legacy, what does it mean? This is what I was actually asking someone. What does legacy mean? I don't even know.
The size gap between them has turned into a major point of conversation, and for good reason. What catches the eye is that while Jake Paul has always been strong and solid in his own divisions, standing next to Anthony Joshua creates a true David versus Goliath moment. Joshua doesn't just loom over Paul. His frame tells the story of years spent as a trained heavyweight. And the sight of them side by side is almost startling. Even if Paul has gained muscle and bulk, he still can't match the natural size or commanding presence of someone used to facing other heavyweights.
Jake Paul versus AJ, as though Jake Paul is the bigger in this equation. Not for me. Maybe for MVP, Nikisa, Jake Paul, but not for me. I've kind of marked it or titled it David versus Goliath just because of the size difference. Like, Jake Paul's a big guy. He is. He's 6'1", 220, probably fights around, the 200-pound mark. AJ is an enormous guy. Like, he's a big, big unit. And I think Jake realized that when they came face to face. I don't know if that's the first time they've ever come that close. I'm sure they've met behind the scenes. But I think there was a realization from Jake Paul, like, fuck, this is a big dude. It's a very, very big dude who isn't coming to play. Like, there was no play with AJ. That was a press conference that almost sounded like AJ versus someone in the top 10, where AJ's taking it seriously. He's answering the questions direct that Ariel's throwing him. There was no, yeah, we're here to kind of fuck around. this is going to be easy. Give me my money and let me run back to the UK. This was AJ's like, no, we're taking this seriously. And that ain't a good thing for Jake Paul. It isn't. And AJ is that guy anyway. Like, I would never doubt that AJ would take this seriously. But for Jake Paul, I do wonder if realization is kicking in, or maybe he is just that delusional where he doesn't care. I do, and I've been sort of corrected by a few people who maybe know better, but I do think the Americans don't credit or rate AJ. I do think there's a bit of that. I remember when AJ did the rounds prior to the Ruiz fight, and there were a few people like, yeah, you're not that good. This was prior to...
Nikki Sabedarian, CEO of Most Valuable Promotions, the team backing Jake Paul, told Sky Sports that the December 19th fight against Anthony Joshua is being framed as a massive global spectacle. Bedarian admitted that while Joshua clearly brings far more experience, Paul's almost reckless confidence might be the elusive X factor that keeps this showdown unpredictable. She also shared that the fight was fast-tracked. Though the original plan aimed for a 2026 matchup, Paul pushed to speed things up, and negotiations were condensed to make the bout happen now.
Will there be a limit for Joshua?
So there's a lot of discussion around the weight. Joshua fought Usyk twice. Both of those times, Usyk was 221 pounds. Joshua was 240 to 245. When Jake fought Mike Tyson last year, 227 pounds. I expect Jake will come in anywhere between 225 and 230, and Anthony Joshua has a weight limit of 245 pounds.
There will be those, as you're aware, that will look at it and criticise this fight. There already have been, haven't there? They'll say it's a real mismatch. What would you say to them? Are we going to be watching sport at its purest?
I would say it's much less of a mismatch than what you saw with AJ and Francis Ngannou, who a massive man, but relatively no boxing experience. I would say it's much less of a mismatch than AJ's 9th or 10th fight against guys who've been knocked out 20 to 25 times. Given AJ's pedigree, Jake is built for this. Jake is built for the big moments. So do I think it's dangerous for Jake Paul? Absolutely. Do I think it's also dangerous for Anthony Joshua?
Alexander Usyk has made it clear that when it comes to Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul, he views the matchup as hopelessly lopsided. Usyk likened Joshua to a Rolls-Royce and Paul to a Fiat, suggesting there's no real comparison between a seasoned heavyweight and an influencer-turned-boxer. In Usyk's eyes, the gap isn't only about fame or buzz. It's about fundamentals, experience, and physical preparedness. He believes Paul is stepping into real danger facing Joshua, given how starkly different their boxing backgrounds truly are.
Anthony Joshua is Olympic champion. Yeah. First. Jack Paul is, sportsman, YouTuber, showman. Rolls-Royce, Fiat. Listen, it's true. I'm not by any advice.
Oh my God.
I have nothing better in mind.
Yeah. It's just true. It's business, more money. Only this.
So we need to pray for Jake Paul.
Yes. I will pray Jake Paul because I want fight with Jake Paul in octagon.
Yeah.
Do you think that Joshua should be fighting Tyson Fury next year?
I want this fight. Yeah, I fan.
Tony Jeff, an Olympic boxer, offered a different perspective on why Jake Paul deserves serious attention. He pointed out that Paul has every tool a fighter could dream of. He can hire elite trainers, world-class conditioning coaches, sports psychologists, nutritionists, and the finest sparring partners. With his resources, Jake can craft a flawless training camp without compromise. Jeff also noted that Paul recognizes this as the biggest test of his career, and he'll push himself harder than ever. Beyond that, Jake holds the age advantage. Jeff reminded everyone that in boxing, youth is a powerful edge. Younger fighters recover faster, train harder, and often show up stronger and more energized.
tail of the tape. Now looking at the age difference, we've got 28 years old compared to 36 years old. So I guess the advantage there goes a little bit towards Jake Paul. 28-year-old is better than a 36-year-old. But that being said, we've got talking about experience and everything else, what comes with being 36 years old at Anthony Joshua's level. And then like I mentioned, the heavyweights kind of seem to prime a little bit older. Now come down to the height and the weight. This is the big one. 6'1" versus 6'6". 200 pounds versus 252 pounds. We got a 252 pounder in Anthony Joshua. The reach advantage is a lot, which we would expect. Amateur fights, we can see that Jake's only had one, where AJ's had 43, but 43 of them are included at the highest level, Olympic level. And yes, he won the Olympic bloody gold medal, if I don't need to remind you. Then the pro record, Jake Paul has had 13 fights, lost one. AJ has had 28 fights and he's lost 4 with 25 KOs. And the one person that Jake Paul lost to was Tommy Fury. Now, can we compare Tommy Fury with Anthony Joshua? Not at all. It's like night and day. So now I'm going to talk about the rules of this fight, and I'll give you my prediction, which is going to shock a lot of people after this. So, what are the rules? The bout will take place at a heavyweight, obviously. It's going to be 8 3-minute rounds. You might think, well, that's better for Jake Paul, and I'm thinking, not really. It's better for Anthony Joshua because he's just going to go all out for them 8 3-minute rounds. And imagine that, Anthony Joshua blasting at you, 6'6", whatever he is, 250 pounds, throwing big bombs at you. Anyway, both fighters will be using 10-ounce gloves for the duration of the contest. Why have they got that? It says both fighters will be wearing 10-ounce gloves for the duration of the contest. What do you expect? Them to take them off halfway through and switch them to 12s? But I guess these days, anything happens in boxing, right? The boys will follow similar rules to Jake Paul and Mike Tyson in November, but that fight was 8 2-minute rounds and 14-ounce gloves. Not similar if it's smaller gloves and 2-minute rounds. Who wrote this for DAZN? It marks the first time Joshua will have contested less than 10 rounds since...
Veteran heavyweight Derek Chisora has slammed the idea of Jake Paul getting a WBC ranking, calling it an insult to boxing. Chisora argued that true fighters grind relentlessly to climb the rankings, while Paul, taking on unranked or past prime opponents, would jump ahead purely because of fame, not skill. He accused WBC President Mauricio Sullivan of sacrificing credibility for cash, calling it a disgrace to the sport. Chisora stressed that real rankings are earned in the ring, not handed out for clicks or promotional buzz. Meanwhile, many analysts defend Jake, claiming Joshua can't take punches like before, or that his chin has faded after past knockouts. They explained that just because Joshua lost to another heavyweight like Daniel, it doesn't automatically mean Jake Paul will beat him. Joshua still possesses world-class skills, immense power, and years of experience. Analysts argue the decline is exaggerated and that Joshua can still win decisively if he stays disciplined and focused.
WBC have said they're going to give a cruiserweight ranking to the winner of this fight. Do you think they deserve one?
I don't think so. I don't know why. It's hard enough for real athletes, for real boxers, to get those rankings, and then suddenly this Solomon Sousa decides to give double ranking because he's getting some greens in his, in his back pocket. No, that is.
Anthony Yarde offered a sharper, more urgent take. He cautioned Joshua not to underestimate Jake Paul and urged him to come out swinging and treat the fight with full seriousness. Yarde believes Paul excels at generating hype and commanding attention. He knows how to turn a fight into a worldwide spectacle, which can sometimes throw opponents off or make them complacent. Yarde warned that if Joshua steps into the ring too relaxed, Jake Paul might just catch him by surprise.
AJ's laughing. Against Jake Paul, come on. If it's not, there's all these people say, oh, it's all fixed and all this and that. If that's not true, AJ should just go up there and punch him up, But if some funny stuff happens and Jake Paul starts doing the rope-a-dope, there's something must be going on. But yeah, I don't think this fight's crazy. But Jake Paul's a master at getting eyes, He's been like that. He's very smart. No one cares if he loses, he's meant to lose, and they both make...
Former UFC contender-turned-boxer Darren Till voiced strong support for Paul while responding to talk of a possible Joshua versus Paul clash, calling the involvement of Saudi promoter Turki Al-Sheikh hypocritical. Till didn't hold back, telling him to get out of here. He added that Paul goes into the fight with nothing to lose, highlighting Joshua's clear vulnerability under pressure and noting that Joshua isn't the strongest mentally. Till insisted that Paul's mental toughness could give him a real edge if the bout comes together.
Past Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua, as much as he's a monster, he's got a weak mind, hasn't he? So Jake could end up getting into it because Jake's got everyone eating out the palm of his hand. He's a very clever man. So
you really think he's got a chance?
Why wouldn't he have a chance? Look how confident he is. Mate, come on. Like, Anthony would have all the pressure in the world, and if Anthony didn't do him with the first few punches, he'd start doubting himself in his head, because that's what he does. But no, Anthony should win, shouldn't he?
What do you make of Tyson Fury saying that he's going to put $1 million bet on Jake winning by knockout?
Tyson to leg it, lad. He's retired about 50 times. What's he on about, mate? Just tell him to leg it, and I'd love him. If he walked in here, I'd obviously...
At one point, you were good friends.
I'm still good friends, but obviously if he walked in here, I'd act like I'm not talking about him, but then on the camera I'm talking, you know? Is this not what we're on?
Fair enough.
Is everyone not fake, or no? We all... What are we on here? Are we all acting like we don't hate each other? Like, come on. Like what?
You're on absolute smoke today.
Shut your mouth, Tyson.
A former three-weight world champion and ex-ITV boxing commentator, Duke McKenzie has shared strong views against the notion of Anthony Joshua facing Jake Paul, particularly within the crossover fight trend. McKenzie criticized the growing wave of YouTubers and MMA fighters stepping into boxing, calling it a misguided path. Reflecting on Joshua's bout with ex-UFC champion Francis Ngannou, he warned it could have ended in disaster, insisting the MMA fighter should never have stepped into the ring with Joshua. McKenzie stressed that boxers and MMA fighters ought to remain in their own arenas, urging them to stay in their lanes to protect both safety and the sport's integrity.
Hearn has confirmed that they are actually in talks to have this fight before a possible fight against Fury.
Well, Eddie Hearn's a promoter first and foremost, and he's in the business of making money. I'm not so sure he's even thinking about anybody's, getting hurt or anything like that. That hasn't even entered his head. But it should, because somebody could easily lose their life.
That's quite a concern, isn't it? I mean,
I think so.
That should be the forefront of everybody's mind.
I think so. I think there's the fight business, and then there's the fight game, and the way they're talking about it, they're talking about it like it's a game. I don't think Anthony Joshua would take Jake Paul lightly, any way, shape or form, and it'd be so easy to hit. You're talking about a trained athlete against.
Chael Sonnen jokes that Jake would try to call out AJ even on fight day if he could, but he reminds everyone this isn't how the business works. Chael explains that Jake is funding nearly everything, from press events to promotions, because he's not just the fighter, he's also the promoter. That means he bears the financial weight and can't just switch things up last minute or shock people with sudden calls. Sonnen emphasizes that Jake built this entire path himself, and that comes with responsibility, because when you run the show, your money, time, and reputation are at stake. Many analysts still doubt Jake will go through with it, claiming there's no way he'll fight Anthony Joshua. But Chael Sonnen sees it differently and insists that Jake Paul set this fight in motion from the start.
They're telling you what they would do. Do you think this guy would fight this guy? No way. He'd get his ass kicked. So they're telling what they're telling you about themselves. They're letting you know that they would not take a fight that they didn't know that they were going to win. When the person says, mark my words, Jake Paul will pull out of this fight, he might even do it the day of. Pull out of the fight to who? It's his fight. Who is this mystery person? Did you write? Because I know this is a big category. I just read one guy that said this. But I'm talking to a lot of you, aren't I? A lot of you believe that Jake Paul is going to pull out of that fight. Might even do it the day of, correct? Correct? Okay. Who would he pull out to? He is the promoter. Who would he call? Does he send an email to himself? Does he send a text message to himself? Does he schedule a meeting, come in and sit down, across the table and look in the eye himself? Like, it's the part that is the most fascinating about the whole thing is that Jake would be the one to be the skunk at the garden party. It's his money that has brought us to...
Is this fight a messy mismatch, or a high-stakes, unpredictable blockbuster?